Since their original release in 1978, LEGO has produced more than 4 billion total minifigures. So just how are these little guys made? What goes into the design and production of a LEGO minifigure, and what is the deal with those special markings on minifigures' necks? Well, like any other LEGO product, it all starts with a sketch. The design process for a minifigure, like so many other things, starts simply with the spark of an idea and a good old-fashioned sketchpad. While most artists have evolved from pen and paper to digital drawing tablets, every LEGO character starts out life as a simple sketch. These sketches show off some of the characters that would show up in Collectible Minifigures Series 18. We can clearly see Birthday Cake Guy and Elephant Ballerina went largely unchanged, while the drawing that seems to be of a T-Rex ended up turning into a dragon, and the pigeon was just dropped entirely from the series. Once an idea has been selected, it's time for LEGO designers to start crafting the physical version. These sketches need to be transformed into larger scale models, and this is usually done either using clay or currently available LEGO pieces. The modeling step is key to helping nail down the scale and overall feel of the minifigure. This process can take a lot of time, especially if the minifigure will receive a brand new molded piece. Next, these design models are scanned and imported onto a computer, which allows the designers to finalize the product details for development. Now that the design has been all drawn up, it's time to leap from the drawing board to the production floor. Before a minifigure can be released, it first needs to be prototyped. This is a vital step in any design process, as no amount of computer design can really compare to that of a real-life physical object. These LEGO prototypes are typically made out of red or translucent plastic and are never printed on. While these prototypes certainly aren't meant to be released to the public, they do often find their way outside of the LEGO factories and become highly sought-after collectibles. These red Darth Vader prototypes are one of the more commonly found versions, while these translucent green Seatron minifigure prototypes are true one-of-a-kind collectibles worth a lot of money. Okay, so now the prototypes have been approved. Great. Now it's time to swing into full-scale production. To do that, we need to travel to Kladno, about an hour outside of Prague in the Czech Republic. This is where LEGO produces not all, but many of its minifigures today. To make the pieces used in minifigure construction, LEGO uses injection molding and ABS plastic in a process identical to that of normal LEGO bricks. In fact, I've got a whole video on how LEGO's plastic injection molding works, which goes into a lot more detail on that process specifically. I'll link it in the description because the individual parts for each minifigure are made the same way prior to being assembled. Speaking of individual parts though, how many pieces make up a minifigure? Well, that depends on who you ask. On official set piece counts and without including minifigure accessories, each minifigure is classified as 3 distinctive pieces: a head, a torso, and legs. While that's certainly the way that most minifigures arrive in brand new LEGO sets, there are actually 9 individually molded parts that LEGO uses in the minifigure construction process: a head, a torso, 2 arms, 2 hands, a hip piece, and 2 legs. Now the production line all starts, of course, with the iconic yellow heads. Thousands of faceless pieces make their way along a conveyor belt for printing, typically in groups of 6, with one belt usually catering to a single face. Giving a blank yellow piece of plastic a fully lifelike expression is a multi-step process. Along the way, each head needs to make several momentary stops at pad printing stations dedicated to a single facial feature, such as facial hair, eyes, and so on. Finally, each head receives a little white dot applied on each eye, which really makes the modern minifigure seem to twinkle with adventure and creativity. Each of these conveyor belts can produce up to 23,000 printed heads per hour. Meanwhile, in another part of the LEGO factory, torsos are being printed. Like heads, these blank pieces are printed layer by layer to create the final look, though these are done one at a time. This process isn't perfect, however. Every now and then a piece slips or a stamp misses the mark and a misprint occurs. While these are typically picked up by LEGO's quality control department, they do occasionally slip through. In fact, I've got another video talking about LEGO piece misprints. I'll put a link in the description. It's at this stage that one of LEGO's most curious signature marks is added. These black, or sometimes white, dot markings appear on most minifigure necks, but not all of them. So what's their purpose? Why do these torsos have the mark, while these don't? Well, it has to do with the next stage of assembly. You see, you can't have a LEGO minifigure without arms and their signature claw-like hands. These are attached to the torsos using small robotic grippers and sliding actuators to insert the arms accurately and facing the right direction. This is where those neck squares come into play. Using them as a guide, a small laser scans the piece to make sure that they are all facing the same way before being set onto the conveyor belt to await the next step. In other words, these neck markings help LEGO's arm attachment machine to correctly identify the front torso print. This is why you only see the squares on printed torsos. Unprinted ones don't need to have the arms attached in any particular direction, as long as both arms face the same way, of course. Once the arms have been attached, it's time to finish up the upper half with 2 little hands. Each of these is inserted one at a time before the torsos, now officially corded as a single LEGO piece, make their way onto the next step. Overall, LEGO's factory in the Czech Republic can assemble up to 8,000 minifigure torsos per hour. While that's all going on, there's yet another part of the LEGO factory hard at work. Minifigures are more than just a head and torso. They need some legs. Like the upper half, the bottom half of a minifigure is made up of several individual pieces, the hips and 2 legs. After being molded, each leg is printed 1 layer at a time before being moved to the assembly line where the left and right legs are attached to the hip piece. The machine can do up to 4 pairs of legs each second, totaling more than 14,000 per hour. But you see, LEGO has a few more tricks up its sleeve. Not every minifigure follows the exact same formula, and over the last few years, LEGO has introduced a few new techniques: overmolding and dual molding. Overmolding is when part of an element is molded on top of another part, trapping one of the pieces within another and making a single element with 2 or more colors. There is a distinct line where one color ends and another begins, and yet it's all one single piece. This technique was widely used on the Simpsons minifigures to create their distinctively shaped heads. But the first time it was actually ever used was in the Indiana Jones sets from 2009 in these crystal skull pieces. You can clearly see the blue brain inside of a clear skull as a single LEGO piece. Additionally, LEGO has another special technique called dual molding, which, as the name suggests, is the practice of putting 2 colors in the same mold to create a 2-tone piece. This is increasingly common on minifigure arms and legs, and you can see a great example on Bart here. Notice how his arms and legs are both 2 different colors. This is different than just regular printing because the color here cannot ever come off. It's actually 2 distinct plastics in one piece. Once all the components have been printed and assembled for the minifigure, it's time for packaging. Now, minifigures don't ever come alone. They're nothing without their accessories. Many of these are produced elsewhere at a different LEGO factory and finally meet up in one of LEGO's many designated packing locations to begin the packaging process. Here, one of each piece is dropped into a single bin along yet another conveyor belt. These bins contain one of every part that will go into the final bag, and each one gets dumped directly into the final package before being sealed up into boxes that you and I can buy. In fact, YouTube now actually allows you to shop for LEGO sets using YouTube's shopping feature. Check it out in the description of this video. Now, even though LEGO has produced a staggering array of unique minifigure parts, they don't make everything, but they sure have a really ambitious plan to change that. Have you ever wanted to make your own minifigure? Well, in late 2022, LEGO launched the Minifigure Factory, where users could create their very own designs or choose from hundreds of existing and new prints. This was widely popular and let anyone finally create that perfect look. Unfortunately, this launch was a time-limited beta test and was taken down after a few short months. Don't worry though, the LEGO site today says that the service has been closed so that they can improve the experience for the future. So it sure sounds like they'll be bringing it back sometime shortly. Speaking of which, if you want to catch all my newest LEGO videos, be sure to subscribe to my channel and click here to watch a more detailed video on how entire LEGO sets are manufactured.